What's up, guys? Today we're going to be revisiting the Galaxy S20 FE in 2024. This is a phone that I get quite a few requests about, and actually a lot of you guys still have this phone. So this is a very good phone to consider in 2024, and the price on this phone is extremely cheap here in the used refurbished marketplace, like $139. And I see them going for, sometimes if you bid on them, you can find them for like maybe $100 or something like that. But again, typically these are going for like $139 or $150. So the S20 FE, it's a very interesting phone because this is kind of the last generation where Samsung had the SD card support in the phones, which is a big deal for a lot of people. So even though I would recommend you go get an S21 FE or S22 or something like that, it'll be a little bit more, but they don't have the SD card support, so that's the thing that makes this phone kind of unique. The design on this phone is still pretty decent looking here in 2024. I think it doesn't look terrible for the most part. Now it is a plastic back, but it has kind of like a matte kind of finish to it, so it's not glossy, so it doesn't pick up a ton of fingerprints, and it does have metal sides here, so overall it does not feel cheap. I think it still looks somewhat decent in 2024 here. It is IP68 dust and water resistant, and again it does have the SD card support, and it's pretty comfortable to hold as well too. So the screen on the S20 FE is actually still really good, guys. So it is a completely flat panel here, and it's the Super AMOLED display. It's 120 Hertz. It's HDR10 plus at 6.5 inches, and it's 1080p 407 for the PPI. It's a really nice display to look at. It's fairly, bright for the most part. It's not as bright as the new phones in direct sunlight, so that is one thing I noticed, but everything else is just amazing. The colors are super vibrant, really nice looking on here. And I have no issues with the display. I think it's also a pretty good size as well too. And yeah, really no complaints with the display. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of bezel on this phone, but it still looks fantastic. Like, it looks really good for 2024. So this is like a really amazing thing about these older flagship phones, is that you're getting a lot for your money here. For $139 is really impressive. So this phone launched with Android 10, and its last update was Android 13 One UI 5, so it's running pretty decent software as far as it feeling fresh and modern still. One UI 6 is really not that different from One UI 5. And as far as the software and everything, it's still pretty smooth device. Navigating through the operating system, all of your essentials are still here, like Samsung desktop support as well too, so you're not really missing out on anything when it comes to the software. And again, I think this phone actually got a little bit smoother with the Android 13 update from when it initially launched. The phone does have the Snapdragon 865 chip on here. Like I said, you do have micro SD card support, so if you play a lot of games, take a lot of video, then you'll really like this phone. And then you also do have on here 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM on board. This phone still does a phenomenal job when it comes to gaming performance, and like I said, just performance in general here. For something like PUBG, we're still able to get pretty good settings on here for the most part. We have our HDR Extreme on here. And yeah, I've never really run into issues with performance on this phone. So it does a really good job when it comes to, being able to play pretty much any game you throw at it for the most part here. So that's why I always say, a lot of people come to me on the channel and they want like a phone for gaming. And I always recommend an old flagship. You really can't go wrong with this type of phone. It's just going to have way more power than any type of budget phone. Well, at least most of them. That you will find on the market here, and it's going to be significantly cheaper as well too. So yeah, so definitely this is a great device for gaming. I mean, you could definitely play some matches of PUBG, Call of Duty on here, no problem. Now the speakers on here sound pretty good at max volume. Yeah, the speakers are pretty solid on here, and also the fingerprint scanner does a pretty good job as well too. It is a optical one, but it does work. You know, it's not as fast as the ultrasonic ones, but as you guys can see, definitely works. And you can also use a face unlock as well too. Now the question is, how has the cameras aged on the S20 FE? And just like most of these flagship phones or these older flagship phones, is that it's still going to do a pretty good job in good lighting, but it will suffer a little bit. In low lighting, detail will, you know, just not be there. And also the color, I noticed on the S20 FE is just really like overly colorful in some of the shots, especially like some of the trees. It'll make it like really green. You'll notice that throughout you know, some of the pictures, but in general, it's still going to take fantastic shots. I mean, it takes really good photos for the most part. It's got a 12 megapixel standard and an 8 megapixel telephoto. It has 3 times optical zoom on here as well too. And then you also have a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 4K 60 with a 32 megapixel selfie that also shoots in 4K 60. Now, like I was saying with the shots and also the selfie cam, definitely, you know, it can be a little bit soft. If you're not in good lighting as well too. So I would say still takes good photos for the most part, but it's sometimes, like I said, it can struggle in certain kind of lighting conditions. And it's pretty much the same for video. Good video, again, will struggle in, you know, certain type of lighting condition. So yeah, so absolutely, you know, great cameras for the most part. I mean, for 130 bucks, you know, it's gonna be more than enough, I think, for most people. Let's talk about the battery life of the S20 FE. So again, with older flagships, of course, the battery life is gonna, you know, take a hit. The battery health is not gonna be as good as it was when it was new or a year old or something like that. Now, I typically can squeeze around like 5 hours plus a screen on time out of this phone. Now, the battery life is not terrible on here, in my opinion. Standby time is just okay. But this phone, it does have a 4500 milliamp hour battery, 25 watt charging. Wireless charging is on board with reverse wireless charging. So if you're somebody that plays a lot of games, this is probably a phone that you know, definitely are going to have to charge for the most part. But if you are kind of a lighter user, I don't think you really have to worry about battery life too much on this device. So what do you guys think of the S20 FE here in 2024? Let me know your thoughts. Is it worth buying? And I'll catch you guys in the next one.